господа, просим вас занять...
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats and turn off your cell phones and flashes. The plenary session will start in several minutes.
We kindly ask you to take your seats, switch off your mobile phones, and disable the flash on your cameras. The plenary session will start in a few minutes. Дамы и господа, просим вас занять свои места, отключить мобильные телефоны и вспышки фотокамер. Пленарное заседание начнется через несколько минут. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we kindly ask you to take your seats, switch off your mobile phones, and disable the flash on your cameras. The plenary session will start in a few minutes. господа, просим вас занять свои места, отключить мобильные телефоны и вспышки фотокамер. Пленарное заседание начнется через несколько минут. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we kindly ask you to take your seats, switch off your mobile phones, and disable the flash on your cameras. The plenary session will start in a few minutes. господа, просим вас занять свои места, отключить мобильные телефоны и вспышки фотокамер. Пленарное заседание начинается. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we kindly ask you to take your seats, switch off your mobile phones and disable the flash on your cameras. The plenary session is starting now.
Природа.
Nature is the greatest engineer. It uses resources wisely. By converting, renewing, it creates new life. We learn from nature, and not to subjugate it, but to shape the future together with it. Bioeconomy is the first stage in creating a nature-based technology sphere. Russia has enormous natural resources, vast arable land, a lot of fresh and clean water, energy, resources, and this is complemented by powerful scientific expertise in physics, chemistry, genetics. Nature sustains life. man should use its resources reasonably without upsetting the balance. In our country, since the 1960s, biotechnology is growing and developing, including the bioindustry. Right now, over 230 companies work in the field of bioeconomy. We have everything to take a strong position in the global bioindustry. The Future Technology Forum 2026 is a place where the legacy of the past meets achievements of present day and innovations of tomorrow. Here, scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs create competitive, sovereign, and sustainable bioeconomy of the 21st century. The fourth Future Technology Forum, Bioeconomy for Humanity. Good afternoon, dear participants of the forum. Let's begin our meeting. My name is Dimitri Zauers. I'm Deputy Chairman of the Board of Gazprom Bank. I will be moderating our discussion today. I'll be introducing the speakers as we proceed. This is the fourth Future Technology Forum, and the forum has become a platform that helps develop the outlines of the future development of the country in the field of technology. Right now, this year, the topic of the forum is bioeconomy for humanity, and there are three factors that I would like to mention. More than 50 countries have approved their own national bioeconomy development programs that confirms the strategic importance of this area for the development of societies. Russia is the country number one in terms of its bioresources. That's about 17% of the world's, which is, of course, our unique competitive advantage that we need to tap as part of this drive. And speaking about the global market of biotechnologies, it's growing at a pace. It grows in tens of percent, and it is now estimated at more than $1.2 trillion, which opens up tremendous opportunities for Russia in terms of its participation in this race that will definitely define the future of various countries on the economic map of the world. The project that was approved in December of 2025 is, of course, a very important solution to unlock Russia's unique potential and ensure that we have supremacy in this field. Together with our wonderful speakers today, we will be discussing how we can reach these goals, what are the outlines of bioeconomy, and most importantly, we'll talk about the priorities and the various aspects of implementing the national project. But first of all, I would like to take this opportunity and use the biological method known as division and divide the word of bioeconomy into two, bio and economy. And it's clear that bio is about life and everything living, and that includes biotechnologies. But where does economy come into this? How we can produce huge economic effects using biotechnologies? How can we merge bio and the economy? And we have 5 speakers today that definitely are experts in life sciences, in biotechnology, in the bioindustry. And they will be talking about the biological topic. And as someone with the banking experience, I'll be talking about the economy. And of course, I'll be trying to pull you into the discussion of the economy and the utility for the public, because that's how we are going to be able to amalgamate the two. And for all of the participants and for the speakers, I would like to provide a straightforward economic concept that everyone is aware of. It's called the cost of energy. And we know perfectly well that cost of energy affects all of us and every company. It affects the company's success. It's a great indicator. And by energy, we usually mean electrical energy, but biological energy is equally important for man, and it is measured in the same physical units, in calories. And if we are to look at the bioeconomy as a concept that would allow us to reduce the cost of biological calories, then, of course, that would mean that we will be able to secure our food security and will make us competitive globally, because the cheapness of calories will help us shape the future of the economy for years ahead. And this is something we're going to be discussing with our speakers today. And I would like to start, of course, with the Kurchatov Institute, which is not just the intellectual and technological center in a broad swath of areas, but it's also has a lot of programs in bioeconomy, and it is competing and combines the work of leading research institutions. And joining us today is the Doctor of Physics and Mathematics, a corresponding member of the Russian Academy of Science, and director of the Kurchatov Institute, Ms. Yulia Dyakova. They recently had a seminar in the run-up to this event. I attended it. It was really impressive by the talks given by the Kurchatov Institute's scientists. Please tell us about the key areas of research in bioeconomy that you are doing at the Kurchatov Institute. And, of course, I will ask you questions about the economy. One of the key areas where we have accumulated a lot of competences at your institute is genetics. And for us, genetics is a fundamental language that describes living systems. It's a builder set that allows you to process information and assemble various bioproducts and make bioresources. Can genetics, which seems very fundamental and basic, be and serve as an instrument for increasing economic effectiveness as you create biological products? You can probably touch upon that. Thank you very much, Dmitry. Good afternoon and good evening, dear guests of the forum. Indeed, this forum is quite important for us. It is important as a festive occasion, of course, but I would also answer one of the questions you've posed earlier. What is the relationship between bio and economy? Why are we talking about bioeconomy as the future? It is indeed the world that is around us, the world that we as mankind have built, that the world that we try to build in such a way that we copy from nature. But we are doing it primitively, coarsely, because we hadn't really researched well the principles underpinning the works of nature. And we've talked about nature-like technologies, nature-based technologies. And because we've copied things fairly crudely, the copies are not really that effective from the energy standpoint. It requires a lot of energy to be consumed. And wastage of energy is unavoidable because we are growing, we're consuming, and it's a quality of consumption that is important. Computers, for example, are the heat machines, unlike the brain, which is quite energy efficient. We are not using these principles, biological principles of energy conversions and biological principles of operation and functioning. Whenever we talk about bioeconomy, we talk about that as the first stage of developing the nature-like technosphere. The technosphere, the realm that will be based on the principles of nature itself. We have the full tool set right now, including genetics, to study nature and use those principles to build this new technosphere, which would be nature-like. I will be copying and reproducing the principles of nature and make it a part of resource circulation so that we can take that and bring what we've created in harmony with nature. And that would enable that we have sustainable development with enough energy and resources available to us. And I would like to say that today's forum is a very important event. But the need for the development of nature-like technologies, this is something that Vladimir Putin, our president, mentioned in 2019 at the 70th General Assembly at the United Nations in 2015, when he talked about the anthropogenic impact on the environment. He said that we want to reduce this effect, but we shouldn't do this by contracting development, rather by switching to new nature-like technologies that are fundamentally different from what we are used to. Another thing that you mentioned is quite important. You talked about the basic knowledge accumulated at the Kurchatov Institute and at the Russian Academy of Sciences, of course, that we interact with. We operate under their guidance. and this basis was created under its guidance. It is important that the former Soviet Union was always a leader in the development of biotechnologies. Back in the 1950s and in the 1960s, we created the microbiology industry, which is based on the genetics institutes that were saved by Kurchatov, Alexandrov, the director of the Kurchatov Institute, and the president of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Genetics were, as the science was saved. And that gave rise to Gosniye Genetica, one of the research institutes in the field of genetics, and where we've created the largest collection of microorganisms, the natural plants, that process that is around us, everything that's around us, converting matter into what we need. How? That's exactly how nature does it. So we've created this microbiological industry. In the 1990s, in the transitional period, we lost that leadership. But I would like to say that in the 21st century, thanks to the decisions that were made by the President of the Russian Federation and the government of the Russian Federation, we created quite a lot. And the forum today is not something that emerged out of anything. We have a basis. It's the fundamental Soviet school and a lot of upside that we created in the 21st century. In the 10s of the 21st century, we started the development of nature-like technologies as announced by the president. And as a tool set for research and studies, we launched 2 federal scientific programs, the program for the development of genetic studies and synchrotron studies. The second one allows us to investigate at the level of atom how the nature operates, and the genetic studies program is something that allows us to look at the genome level. What is a genome? We can imagine an organism as a plant where everything works, our body parts, cells, protein, but the programming code of that is the genome, and that would define how the organism would function, whether it's a man or a fungus or a bacteria or everything else. The genome encodes the programming code that runs everything, and the synchro studies would allow us to observe all of that. These 2 programs were launched concurrently, which entailed a couple of important events that followed from that. Of course, we saw that the genetics were under oppression, and many of them had to leave. And when the genetics program was launched again in 2018, it was hard to do this without creating the 3 centers for genomic studies. We needed to have enough personnel. We needed to be sure that we can find enough young geneticists. But we have been able to resolve that problem. We now have thousands of young scientists, genome centers, scientific labs, universities, labs at the academic institutions, where we have fundamental schools and where we see a lot of transfer of knowledge to the younger generation. Most importantly, a new law was developed, the law on bioresource collections. We are the richest country in terms of these bioresource collections. As a library, they list all of the organisms that exist with different properties, and they are the foundation, the golden fund for the development of our bioeconomy. And there's a law on the state's information system using the state's database of genetic information that created the foundation that is quite stable for the development of our bioeconomy. As the next step, I would like to say that it is important to create the so-called bioeco settlements. In Russia, there is a need for spatial development, and we need to develop our remote regions sustainably, and that's where you would use the principles of bioeconomy. We need to make economy circular. It's like a closed-loop fuel cycle in the nuclear industry. So you would use your resources and convert them into products, and the waste could be brought back into this circulation loop. The country is quite diversified, and different regions can use different sources of energy, tides, tidal waves, rivers, sun. And using this diversification, we can create really innovative bioeco settlements. And I have to mention one more thing. It'll take just one more second. We showed at the pavilion of the Kurchatov Institute that we brought from the Polytechnical Institute, or museum rather, that is going to reopen soon. In Crimea in 1985, we created a unique sun power plant that worked at the power capacity of 5 megawatts, given that all of the power plants in the world using sun that would generate now 21 megawatts. So these are the technologies that were created, and we have that so that we can use those bioeco settlements and develop these areas. Thank you very much for your answer. You've given us a lot of examples, and you mentioned that the technologies created by men may not always be efficient. And speaking about genetic information, the database is measured in exabytes, and it is hard to measure that manually. And of course, computational power is needed for artificial intelligence, but AI is not a bioeconomic technology. It now consumes about 1% of global energy in the world. And of course, that's comparable with how much Russia consumes every year. And of course, this is a new technology, but the effects have not yet been generated in bioeconomy. The question I would like to ask next is the question to Dmitry Linnik, who is in charge of the VNIEV Nuclear Center and the Rosatom Corporation. It is a center that specializes in implementing the roadmap for quantum computing. But you are using different technologies in addition to quantum ones. Can the technologies that you are involved in resolve two things: make AI more green, more energy efficient, more environmentally friendly, spend less energy, and at the same time be more computing? Thank you very much. Hello, dear participants and guests of the forum. Indeed, the technology for processing large volumes of data plays an important role in bioeconomy, and it affects all of the sectors of it, so starting from the manufacturing of food products and all the way to the high-tech medicine products. The analysis of high-density information sources that come from drones, satellites, and other sources allows us to optimize many processes and increase the effectiveness of production. Most importantly, it can improve the accuracy of our forecasts. Examples are abound as to where these technologies can be sought after. Take agriculture, for one. Precision agriculture is very important. You analyze big data using spectral aerial imagery, and you can look at the health of plants, intensify basically tillage, and of course you can forecast your yields. And in nature use, analysis of a lot of data also plays an important role. And you would do this remote sensing, and that allows you to monitor what is going on in natural areas, including river resources, forestry resources, and you can also assess the effect of anthropogenic factors on the environment.
And bioinformatics, we have big data, and big data is one of the finding elements because we can find different parallels in DNA. So Dmitry has rightfully said that one of the most efficient instruments to analyze such big data available to us is the technology of AI, artificial intelligence, and that'll be in particular artificial neural networks. But they are always, so to speak, hungry. in terms of computation and energy consumption. I mean, this is kind of a global problem now, and the global scientific community sees solution in shifting towards a technology of the so-called hybrid computation, when, say, classical computation means complemented by more energy-efficient analogs, and they make more computations. So, as an example, we're looking into several architectures based on different physical principles, quantum, neuromorphic, and photon technologies. So Dmitry already mentioned several of those earlier today, and Rosatom has been quite successful in researching and development of this technology and building respective infrastructure. And today, at the exhibition, you could find more about this, but now I'd like to draw your attention to the following. A new technology, photon computation technology, and it brings us to something completely new. We have new ways of processing information, and here we're not looking into electronic waves, we're looking into light waves, and we can create something that is much more, well, it's a specialized device that is much better than what we used to have, and it consumes less energy, multifold. So, to back it up with some examples, I can give you an example. At the moment, on the platform of Physics and Mathematics Center, we, Rosatom, in cooperation with leading universities and academic institutes, are conducting a research in this field, and we have something to demonstrate. We have processes to show, and the first results are quite impressive. So we can recognize the images, and one photon processor is equivalent to 15 graphic accelerators NVIDIA. And if we take all of them, they consume 10 kilowatts, and a photon processor, to do the same with same accuracy, consumes the amount of energy compared to the simple bulb. And now research whether it's possible to apply this technology to do something more practical, more targeted, is conducted in almost every developing countries and developed countries. The technology is yet to be strengthened, but specialists say, they make some forecasts, they say that the mass application may be happening in the next 5-10 years. So it's crucial for us not to lag behind, in order not to find ourselves catching up with everybody else, because all the prerequisites are already available in our country. So I suggest the scientific community and bioeconomics companies get in it and get to it, because the future is just around the corner. We need to get ready now. Well, Dmitry, thank you so much. We really hope that, first of all, you will do this not for minus, but for the sake of science, technology. Of course, no doubt. So here with us today, in the first row, we have the deputy head of the Russian government, Mr. Dmitry Chernyshenko. Well, Dmitry, we see that from development to application, Mike is on the way. So 2 examples. It usually takes not too long to get from A to Z. 40, 50 years later, we have completely different technology, from development to application of this or that. Medicine takes only 9 years. So technology helps us accelerate and turn it into something good for the economy. Well, it's like 3D, 3 Dmitris here. That's quite interesting. Well, about a year ago, during this forum, Future Technologies, President Putin said that AI technology is revolution for the change, and he was talking about chemistry and new materials. But now we could follow up and extend this list, because for bioeconomy this is a big change. A very important comment on the following: the costs for AI seem to be linked to electricity. So basically that's what it is. So efficiency is the stumbling block. to be addressed by science. And we all present here really hope that science will help us solve this. Well, we have an economist here with us, so we rely on our fundamental science, and we have colleagues here with us who are involved in this. But what we need is urgent implementation. But we need to be cautious and mindful. Thanks to our President, we have launched a foresight, and for a year or so we've been working on it together with my colleagues here in Russia, and later you can say we started doing this globally. It was an international foresight. We've identified 10 fields, 10 areas, and they were supported by scientists from 39 countries, and these are broken into 201 goals. And we see that technologies are changing rapidly. Almost every month we see revolutionary change here, revolutionary change there, and it used to be like something that works for all. But now we see completely new technology, and they are not very energy consuming. And what I would like to ask all of you, have a look at 13 research centers that look into AI, and the government is going to support that. And the research, fundamental research, will be funded as well. And this will allow our country to remain and maintain the leading position and support those who are developing this technology. And by the end of 2030, 18 billion are embedded in the budget to support this. So we're discussing this, and these are just practical examples, and this is very important, but we need not forget about the fundamental science. Thank you. Dmitry, thank you very much. Well, if I may, I'm from the fund called VISAF, and we know that there's an award created upon the request of the President. So there was a question. No, actually, I wanted to make a comment. I'm a professional, so one small comment. The transistor was invented in 1949. In 1956, we got 3 Nobel Prizes, the 3 extraordinary engineers, and transistors started appearing on a mass level in 7 years, and so on and so forth. Well, thank you for your comment. Thank you. Well, I was scared that you were going to comment on something that I said. Right, so I was just talking about the national award from the fund called VISAF. So I'm happy to give floor to the laureate of the award in 2025, Vera Vil. She's the doctor in chemistry. She's from the Institute of Organic Chemistry. We know that genetics and processing of information are very important for bioeconomy, but no doubt chemistry gives you a whole range of instruments, and everything that we consume, the polyethylene, food products, and what we eat, what we drink, all of this means a lot of chemical reactions prior to that. And we usually think that chemical reaction has to do something with waste. So can we turn chemistry green and have a waste-free production? Do tell us more about this. Well, thank you, Dmitry. You know, first of all, last year, indeed, I was honored and I became a recipient of this wonderful award, VISAF, and I'm grateful to all those people behind this award. That'll be Gazprom Bank and Rosatom Corporation, because such formats are so valuable, because they turn scientific achievements into something actual, real life. And this is very, very impressive, very inspiring for young people especially. Back to your question, the economic power of the government is about lengthy technological chains, so you can process a lot without much waste left. So it's not only about hydrocarbons, it's not only about oil and gas, it's about agriculture, it's about everything else. in most cases, we have 1, 2, 3 stages when we talk about, for example, conversions, and we have different substances. But if we want to produce something new or some protection for plants, we need 15, 20 stages long chains so that finally we could get to more complex, sophisticated molecules. Unpronounceable names of those we can see on the box of medicine that we buy in drugstore. So if you remember your chemistry lesson at school, you have done something, you have done an experiment, so you're holding a small bottle with a substance in it. But on the table you have more small bottles with some agents in them that you have used in the process. So for the chemical entity, these small bottles turn into dozens of tons of waste that needs to be processed and utilized. So what do? If we think about waste management, if we look into how can we get rid of this waste, what do we do with it? Russian Academy of Sciences and institutes are looking, and they have been looking into this for years. They've been looking into waste-free process. For example, in our lab, in the Organic Institute, we are developing protection for plants, and we're looking into more functional processes. So this is very relevant. This is really important. So all of us present here, I'm sure we all have breakfast, lunch and dinner, and we want to have good quality products. But different insects and other organisms want to eat the same thing as we do. So these pathogenic organisms and insects, they mutate rapidly. So we don't have protection from that. So in order to preserve and maintain food safety and security, we need to have a whole range of instruments in our hands. So what can we do to protect ourselves from pathogenic organisms, genetics or other bioprocesses and other means of protection, so that we could attack, so to speak, different vulnerable targets of these organisms. So in our work we focus on green technology and in the process of chemical reactions to avoid waste, redundant waste, we replace material agents with renewable, for example, the electric current or some other means. So thus we get rid of unwanted waste. So nowadays chemical methods help produce good connections and mixtures, which improves the efficiency of economics and makes the chemistry more stable. So on part of chemical institutes, we suggest we include this slow waste production in the project of the bioeconomy. Okay, well, thank you very much. Actually, I have a news. Actually, Vera is getting married in 2 days. So I would like to wish all the best to the new family and have great results in what you do professionally. I understand your future husband is a chemist too. You know, chemistry connects people. So now we know that, and businessmen usually like to talk about it, industry may be really efficient or environmentally friendly, but some say this is a contradiction. But we've just heard what Viris was talking about, so it's not true. It can work both ways. So I would like to give floor to the chairman of Norchem Holding, Vladimir Dmitriev. So you represent the large-scale production. So do you think it is possible to kill two birds with one stone, make it good, useful and waste-free, and so it would do something good for bioeconomy? I know what you're producing, so I'm sure that colleagues would love to learn more, but please stick to the timeline that you have. Dmitry, thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to say a few words at such a respectable event. Norchem is a great company So we are developing and we run large-scale entities, and we are producing dozens of thousands of tons, and we sell it in Russia and outside Russia. So we haven't started from scratch. And our leader is the National Institute named after Kurchatov, and in store they have thousands of different stamps, organisms, cells, cultures, you name it. And the competencies that Kurchatov Institute has, it's unbelievable. This is the really true global level. So very briefly, I'd like to tell you what Norchem is doing today to develop this heritage and how we apply it on a daily basis. 30 years ago, on the basis of a branch of sub-branch in Saratov, we have founded a company called BioNeed, and together with Kurchatov Institute specialists, we have developed a very unique stamp, biocatalyst, and the respective technology for different polymers. And the product was so competitive, it was so good, that BioNeed decided to export it to the United States, the European Union countries, South Korea, and until recently we've been exporting this, but we decided to go even further, and we came up with a whole chain from basic feedstock, biocatalyst, to the end product. That'll be acrylic polymers. And now they are being used in different fields, in different industries, for example, in oil and gas, mining industry, water treatment, and pulp and paper industry, so on and so forth. So allow me to focus on two examples in two industries. Number one, oil and gas. Let's take oil. For example, anion polyacrylamide is improve the hard to recover reserves. The yields are quite high now, and 70% are now on stage 3 and 4. That's in terms of exploration of the field, without any technological interventions, without special chemical substances. So it's not possible to move any further without something else. So our biopolymer is improving the extraction ratio. And actually, we can extract more oil, 20% more. And in the near future, it may give Russian production of oil hundreds of millions of extra oil. And this technology is of interest for many Russian oil and gas companies. And we have developed a whole range of support measures. The government has developed it, and our input in this very important project is new entity in Saratov. That's 60,000 tons capacity, and the budget is 7 billion rubles. So this should do it and cover the need for what they need to do. So that's about the technological independence and sovereignty of our country. Then next, our catenoid polyacrylamide. So it's about water treatment. Well, the role of pure water, clean water in our lives, I mean, no need to talk about that. But the biggest and largest water company in the world, probably, they are treating 1.2 billion cubic meters of water per year. So they have treatment facilities, and we are working with them. We think that it's huge responsibility, but at the same time, this is about the quality of our byproduct, and the level is really high. It's a global level.
And the production of these products are based on the biocatalysis principle. In regular chemistry, to convert one substance into another, you use catalysts, inorganic ones. And now you've delved deep into chemistry, but I'll be very brief. And that's wonderful. So you would use catalysts. And you would, of course, consume a lot of energy. and you need a lot of pressure. And then you generate waste, which are quite toxic. And biocatalysts, they can replace enzymes. And so the reaction would be at a room temperature in a comfortable ambient environment without almost any waste generated. And so when we produce acrylamide, we would need 3 times less energy to produce your output. That's very elegant. It's a technology that amalgamates several cities in the production chain. Saratov, Perm, Nizhny Novgorod are included. And of course, our products are eyed by the producers of acryl polymers. We were recently approached by a company from the Southeast Asia region. They suggested we create a joint production facility, and we want this joint plant to be created in Russia. Thank you. I would also like to say that our colleagues were able to use catalysts to produce what they need. And of course, when you have a large chemical facility that does 2 of those things that are good for the nature, that's just wonderful. And we are now building the chains that would use information technologies, chemistry, production chains for the production of green products. And we do realize how important it is to use bioeconomy and how helpful it is to mankind. How does man help bioeconomy? And of course, it is clear that you cannot build the new economy without people. And of course, we need to move on to universities and research centers. And of course, they will drive the development of projects like this. And I have to mention the federal projects run by the Ministry for Science and Higher Agriculture. There is this Priority 2030 program, and we are one of the partners. There are more than 3,000 projects that have been looked at, and about 1/3 of them are associated directly with biotechnologies. We are joined by Valery Falkov, the Minister for Science and Higher Education. And Mr. Falkov, the Priority 2030 project is transformative for the entire university community. All universities want to look good at this, and of course they have to implement their own projects as part of this. How do universities cope with the objective of driving forward technological leadership to drive the economy? Thank you very much, Dmitry. I would also add 2 large projects to what you've just mentioned, the ones we do with the Russian Academy of Sciences. That's the research centers of the world class. And that's the project that has been run for 7 years plus. And we started back in 2018. And there have been special grants from the Presidium of the Russian Academy of Sciences allocated. And we have been running projects together with them. Speaking about the flagship higher education project, the Priority 2031, I would like to draw attention to this. When the program was launched in 2021, we implemented the first 4 years, and at the end of these 4 years, we transformed them to feed the goals of technological leadership guided by our president. And of course, that's what the many institutes and universities will be guided by. And of course, this is very much needed. What we've added to those traditional indicators, the unified set exam indicators and other ones, the indication of the technological leadership index, which includes 4 indicators: the size of the research and development work done by universities; number 2, the sale of intellectual property and the returns from that; and of course, revenue from transferring intellectual property and the ability to manage it. And finally, we started looking at the amount of money generated for the universities, but also beyond that. We started looking at how much companies created by universities can generate. That's the first change that everyone was feeling at the university. I would like to thank you, Dmitry, for being one of our strategic partners. You were very actively involved in this. Another important point, we've started to look at this from a different angle, thanks to scientific expertise done by the Science Academy. And we've also looked at whether this is technologically doable, feasible, and whether this is marketable. So it's one thing to suggest something, but to do something and produce a result, that's quite another. And number 3, Another component of all this is the following: strengthening the work of the Council by adding to the Council experts from the business and from the various industries to provide the necessary feedback. That has made the program very interesting. Thank you very much. You've funded more than 50 universities through this program. The universities are changing for the better. And I would like to move on to the Institute of Physics and Technology, represented here by Denis Kuzmin, who is the director of the School of Biological and Medical Physics at MFTI, and of course, man's contribution to the development of biotech through research is quite high. And how can we involve younger individuals in this? You talk to the students, you talk to the school leavers. We need to graduate tens of thousands of experts over the next decades. How is the university going to tackle that? You have a couple of minutes for that. Thank you, Dimitri. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Whenever we discuss technological process stages that are to reduce the cost of biocalories, we need to remember one important conversion stage. I'm talking about the conversion of competencies and transformation of mentality. If we don't do this, those tools that we're using, technological, financial, administrative, are not going to work at full capacity. And the term of bioeconomy itself hints at multidisciplinary nature of this. And therefore, we need to graduate a new generation of multidisciplinary experts, and those that are going to be multidisciplinary engineers, to be more specific. This is what is sought after by the industry, and that meets the expectations of the government. These are the experts that will be generating new solutions, that will be optimizing existing technologies, those that will be able to deal with reverse engineering and ensure that we have accelerated input substitution. And 80% of tech companies in Russia feel the lack of such engineers of this caliber, and that, of course, affects negatively the launch of new production facilities. According to different estimates, by 2036, demand for such engineers will be from 3,000 to 5,000 individuals. And to generate such expertise, you need to have a multidisciplinary approach to education, and you also need to have a very strong mathematics and physics basis. You need to integrate closely the universities with the industry, because to train engineers, you need to be able to provide them accessibility to existing property, plant, and equipment, and what is being done by the facilities at the current moment. And that is part of what we will teach at the new Physics and Technology School at MFTI Institute. Speaking about the various formats that are out there, I would like to say that there is a need to use the formats of additional and supplemental education and retraining. For adults, it is common practice to learn more, but the training classes session should be shorter. And of course, it has certain advantages. It's more flexible. You can make them modular. And the employees can get trained on the job without getting distracted from their responsibilities. Companies are ready to cooperate with the universities in terms of supplemental education, professional education, and that stimulates the individuals to increase their qualification and their loyalty. And such investments will return to you manifold. And in conclusion of my brief intervention, I'd like to say this. We have been talking about difficult matters, but no matter how advanced you are in the age of AI, and no matter how contemporary and state-of-the-art is the drone or bioreactor, their effectiveness depends on the individuals who set them certain goals and objectives. And I would even put it more succinctly. The individual man is going to be the creator, and any technology will be just a lever that used by the talent, the human talent. Thank you very much for such an inspiring and fiery speech. I now understand that it is not enough to teach people biology and economy and economics to get by economists. You need to have a multidisciplinary approach, something that you've mentioned. Dear colleagues, we have good news. Statistics were published recently on the unified state examinations, and in number 3 place in popularity is biology. 20% of school leavers choose that as one of their exams that they want to pass, and that creates a huge potential for the implementation of the bioeconomy approaches. we will have hundreds of thousands and dozens of individuals that will be taught. And I'm about to wrap up this session. I will take upon myself to make a few conclusions. And let me make three definitions of bioeconomy. Please don't judge me harshly. One of them is going to be economic and technological and institutional. I'm not going to be pretending to be too academic, and of course our front row speaker will criticize me again. So first of all, as we heard from what our colleagues have said, bioeconomy is not a separate field or stream of activity or industry or area of knowledge. It's a concept that requires reassembly of a lot of different industries: chemistry, agriculture, medicine, pharmaceuticals, industry, such as manufacturing, and so on, many areas of economy. Plus, you have to be lean and resource-saving to save the resources we have on our planet and in Russia. This is a new form of socioeconomic development of society. And if we are to speak about the other aspect of this, is that Russia is unique. And that's based on historical experience. Its uniqueness is not in its access to biological and natural resources, but also in its talent. I mean, people that can get together, as Denis said, mobilize their intellectual and creative potential and will, and ensure that we have supremacy in many different fields, including technological field, for many years ahead of us. And in that sense, bioeconomy is a project that is no different from the nuclear project or the space project. And we started them back in the 20th century, and they still define our present and will define our future. And of course, the nuclear project defined what is going to be the cost of the calorie, and that set the ground for our advantage. And the bioeconomy project, if we are to implement it, if we are to do it effectively and efficiently, that is something that will allow us to reduce the cost of the biological calories, the food products, and a lot of biological resources that have been created, so that we have the same level of advantage globally in terms of our economic status. And our goal is to ensure that that happens. And finally, bioeconomy is driven by dialectics. It is both about the planet as a whole and for everyone and about every one of us. So bioeconomy for humanity is the slogan of this forum. That's not coincidental. There is not a single individual on this planet of Earth who wouldn't be part of this project. And we think that we live in a digital era, but if we are to think about ourselves as complex biological systems, it will become clear to us that a new era of bioeconomy is looming and is being ushered in. And it is something that is going to define the future that we will live in quite strongly. I would like to thank you all. And I can see that there is some movement in the hall. We're about to wrap this up. And I think would you like to? If I may, I would like to take this opportunity. You've said the right thing about the nuclear and the space projects that were implemented in the 20th century. That is indeed when the strategic priority was chosen, and that's why we are a sovereign nation now. But the biological and biotech project that was launched back then, that's why they created this industry, is probably equally and perhaps even more important, because that is the basis for our biological safety and security and for food security. And although we are sovereign in terms of our nuclear weapons, biological safety becomes very important, comes to the forefront, because bioeconomy is, of course, about economy, it's about business, about energy, but first of all, it's strategically important in terms of our security. And here technological leadership is a direct imperative to ensure that we maintain our sovereignty as a nation. Thank you so much for this edition, and I think we have time for one question. Mr. Katikov, Mikhail Katikov, who is chair of the Commission of the State Council on Technological Leadership and the governor of the Krasnoyarsk Krai. If you can briefly say it, what would be the recommendation to the heads of regions to take bioeconomy in their strategies in just one phrase? Thank you, dear friends. Thank you for the discussion. I shouldn't be giving recommendations to the governors. They know well what needs to be done because economy is the key word for all of the governors. They will be looking at that as the key word, and they will be looking for ways to expand that. We talked a lot about circular economy and about the nature-like technologies, and that means that there's a lot of demand for environmentally friendly technologies. So biology is good, some people would say, but chemistry is not. But we need to have a little bit more of biology and less of chemistry, and that would meet our expectations from the lean economies. And we have seen the use of this, the utility of this. We haven't yet seen the facilities for storing the tail end of the nuclear cycle. And of course, the environmental indicators that we have in the environmental project will be implemented, but we need to get there with something to show for it. So the personnel is very important, the people who are going to be do this, and of course the scientists that will help us develop this. And we have a lot of potential for cooperation in this field. This is not easy, but we will be able to find solutions. And we could take a solution in one region, the source materials in another, and the customer could be in another. But we'll be able to cope with all of the logistical problems so that we could create an added value product to move forward. And that is the prerequisite of the high-tech technology and economy. Thank you. Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Kirikov. We are both from Siberia. I remember from history books that Siberia was once named an area of risky agriculture, but I know that using precision agriculture and high technology and UAVs, we can improve the effectiveness of agriculture and the use of other natural resources. Dear colleagues, indeed, we've touched upon the issue of security. Yulia briefly talked about this. We haven't fully expounded on this. Biotechnologies, as any technology, provides us with a lot of opportunities, but also that can pose serious threats that is applicable to the lives of people. And may I ask you a very quick set of questions about this? Maybe someone from the front row would want to speak to this. You want Mikhail Kovalchuk to speak about this? Or Ms. Kvartsova? We've been talking about threats. And of course, FMBA is guarding us against those threats. Can we ask you this question? And if you can pass the microphone to Ms. Kvartsova. Biotechnologies are creating very important tools, and we eat things, we drink water. How does this all impact us? And of course, there are challenges associated with viruses and bacteria. How do you think we can ensure our security from that? How can we ensure that we are biologically safe and protect ourselves from biological threats?
Well, basically, it's an open secret. If I say that the global monitoring system has already been developed, it's already in place, it's up and running, and it's about genome fact, and it's about looking into different mutations, what's happening to them, or genome destabilization, or activation of different mobile elements, and actually it transforms the biological code of the organism. But what if we talk about genetics? It's softer, it's reversible, nevertheless, oftentimes they are as harmful. But all of these things, well, they're crystal clear, and no doubt we need to keep an eye on it and monitor what we eat, what we wear, what we drink, what we touch, and especially when we talk about vaccines or different drugs that we take, or, for example, widespread popular medications and what we give to children of a certain age. Oftentimes, this requires much stricter control, and the mechanisms are there. So how do we counter these threats? But this is not the topic of our today's forum in general, but in the Russian Federation, we are prepared for both scenarios. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Kvartzo. Mr. Kovalchuk, you wanted to comment on something, I think. You know, I just noticed we're talking about bioeconomy and how it's going to develop, but actually we are already living in it. You walk into a shop, you buy, for example, bread or confectionery or something else. Actually, we're talking about living organs or yeast. They're made of it. You buy yogurt or kefir or something else, or cottage cheese. We're talking about for example, beer or something stronger. Every liquid is made of yeast and other living organisms. So our food safety, what my colleague was just talking about, depends on the things, on things like bacteria, and I mean, they've always been there, and they've always guaranteed our safety. So we need to quickly restore the balance that we used to have. So we need to be mindful of that. And control, as Veronica said, I think is subject for another discussion. Not here. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kovalchuk. So, dear colleagues, let's call it a day. This is the end of our session, but we're getting to the most important part of our event. And I would like to invite to the stage the main guest of the Forum of Future Technologies, the President of the Russian Federation, President Putin.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good afternoon. I've been informed that you've had a professional discussion as part of the Future Technologies Forum, which this year focuses on the matters of bioeconomy. To build up on that, I would like to talk about the steps taken by the state to develop this most important area. And since we have not just the specialists and experts joining in, but rather a wider global audience, I would like to talk in more detail about what you're all aware of, but the wider public might not. Namely, what exactly is bioeconomy? What does it mean? And what are the practical implications and opportunities of it for humanity, the economy, agriculture, healthcare? What is the role played by bioeconomy in reinforcing the industrial and technological sovereignty of the country and environmental security? My colleagues have just introduced me to the most advanced developments presented here at the exhibition at the site of the forum. These are truly impressive. Using the laws and the wisdom of nature, unleashing its vast creative capacity, the scientists, the industrialists are creating solutions for life, for health, for active longevity. These are healthy foods. Although all high-quality foods are good for you and healthy, as well as food supplements, vitamins, vaccines. And I know that every year I hear promises of new vaccines coming up for this and that disease. Unfortunately, the healthcare minister is not here, but he always talks about the process of certifications and other technicalities. But I hope that no amount of red tape would become an obstacle for these important things for human health to emerge as soon as possible. We're also talking about advanced pharmaceuticals and even tissue, blood vessels, and human organs, which is no longer science fiction. Although we are not there yet to create a living human heart, but we're moving forward that. A wide spectrum of the applications of biotechnology is seen in industry, where instead of chemicals, substances and agents, we use natural microorganisms and other living systems as catalysts for complex technological processes, launching a closed cycle when one industry's waste becomes a raw resource for another industry and production. And I've been told about this for many years, and I'm grateful for that. These technologies are used in bioenergy, for environmental tasks, in agriculture, to increase the soil fertility, to protect the plants, to clear the water, the soil and the air. And when it's clean, we see fish coming to the water. Fish which requires good, clean water, and we succeed in that. You see that bioeconomy is much more than just an area of science. Through their bold ideas, the scientists and engineers are creating a new reality, a new way of industry. They apply the achievements in biology, genetics, to improve people's lives, to save our planet and its fragile ecosystem. In Russia, we are proud to say that we have made a great contribution to the development of life sciences through the discoveries and philosophy of Vernadsky, Mechnikov, Timorazev, Koltsov, Vavilov, Engelgard and other distinguished Russian scientists, including modern ones. I will definitely come back to that during my today's speech. And we will continue building up on our capacity and move forward. Besides, biotechnology, reinforced with modern computation systems and artificial intelligence, are developing at an unprecedented rate. And they help us find solutions to the key challenges of our times, including climate change, the food scarcity, and the scarcity of non-renewable resources. They can serve for projects on our Earth, and I've always emphasized that equal access to future technologies, rather than privileges for the chosen few, are the prerequisite for a fair development of our civilization, which is why BRICS and other groups, and as part of bilateral cooperation, we stand ready to develop joint scientific, educational investment programs in biotech for the sake of all humanity. We intend to use the great capacity of bioeconomy to strengthen the nation's health and to find solutions to other priority tasks, to accelerate the technological and industrial development without detriment to the unique natural capacity of our country. This year, we've launched the National Project for Bioeconomy. Its main goal is to ensure sovereignty on a number of critical areas and to improve our positions and achieve leadership in some of the areas. I ask the government to establish a long-term vision, a national strategy of establishing a bioeconomy to the middle of the 21st century. This program should be reflected in the policy documents defining the tasks for the food and biosecurity of Russia, as well as tasks for systemic development of healthcare, energy, agriculture, industry and other areas. We are talking about the creation and implementation of cross-cutting, truly universal technologies and products, embracing basically all the areas, which is why it is important to organize the interindustrial and supraministerial management in bioeconomy. Our steps should be aimed at vastly increasing its share in the national GDP during the exhibition, we've seen the relevance of this task. The people from different areas are all talking about the same common goals. And this means we need to build up the financement for the national project and for any events and activities in the area of bioindustry. The main focus should be on the drawing of non-budgetary assets. We need to remove the obstacles for the involvement of businesses in the establishment of bioeconomy. To accelerate its development, we need to adjust the existing and to offer additional measures for the support of private investments, providing tax and other preferences to the companies creating and introducing such technologies. These tools, as well as others, are meant to work at all the stages, from research and development to the launch of advanced solutions and competitive products based on biotechnology, in order to make sure that the Russian biotech companies can carry out their long-term plans and get a faster return on investment. I will task the government to suggest active mechanisms for the development and protection of the domestic biotech market, and to develop various scenarios of their use in the industries and areas of our economy and social sphere. We see how much our competitors are investing in the development of such technologies. We definitely need to protect our domestic market through modern market means, but we definitely need to do that. We need to establish a systemic demand for such innovations on the domestic market, and we need to build up the production, taking a decent place at the global market of bioeconomy, which is why we need to build an efficient system of supporting the exports of bioproduction with a high added value. We need to promote our achievements and standards and technological platforms in other countries of the world. My colleagues, and especially the Russian audience, will understand me. We work with our closest neighbors. We have good relations with them, and we have established cooperation in many areas which has been existing for decades. The most important matter is having our own scientific devices, equipment, enzymes, biocatalysts, and other critical components. These are the key areas where we need to move from import substitution to the launch of globally competitive products. Using our own national platforms and solutions, I will ask to amend the national project on bioeconomy with specific solutions in this area. Dear friends, in order to ensure accelerated bioeconomic development, we need a modern legislative and legal framework and a system of standards and rules for market access for biotech solutions. The legal framework should support the creation and fast introduction of innovations while ensuring security and high-quality production to the people and society. Let me emphasize that this goes true for all the areas, from biopolymers for packaging to the artificially created organs and tissues. It is all important. We need to establish clear ethical borders of the use of biotechnology in order to prevent the potential threats to the health and life of the people. We also need to ensure the safety of people's personal data. But let me repeat, like in any other advanced area, we need to create conditions for scientific breakthrough. For example, in the area of unmanned vehicles and artificial intelligence, we have good experience of experimental legal framework. I suggest using the same experimental legal frameworks for life sciences, establishing platforms for the testing and development of controlled biotechnologies. We could use our innovative scientific and technological centers for that, including the well-known Sirius Federal Territory in Russia. I will also ask the Russian Science Foundation to provide the Evgeny Velekhev grants to fund new solutions for the agricultural sector, biotechnological production, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, and other industries. Such technologies should be developed with the use of biocomputations and artificial intelligence. Dear friends, I would like to invite the scientific teams to take active participation in the competition of the Russian Science Foundation. Its winners will have an opportunity within 5 years to get up to 500 million rubles of financement from the state, with co-financement from the leading Russian companies to fund their projects. We also employ the scientific infrastructure of the mega science class to create new biotechnology. This year, in Koltsov, in Novosibirsk, we're launching the Siberian circular photon source, and soon it will reach full capacity. In 2027, I believe, our scientists will gain access to this work. We stand ready to carry out international scientific programs for life sciences, biology, medicine and pharmaceutics using this platform in Siberia. It's important to make sure that the scientific and bioeconomic research are not just fundamental. We need to apply this research in order to build up the economical and technological capacity of the regions, in order to develop the vast territory of Russia. For example, in the northwest of the country, we need to establish the processing of the lumber and timber products. In the Far East, we need bioproduce based on the aquatic resources. In Siberia and in the south of Russia, we need the processing of our grains. These are only a few areas of the vast regional bioeconomic programs. They should take into account the specific features of the territories, the resources, and the economic specialization. And the regions should have the qualified personnel and technology for that. Therefore, I suggest that the regions of Russia, based on our universities and scientific institutions, should establish a vast network of engineering centers for the interests of bioeconomy. Such centers would shorten the path from lab research to full-scale industrial production, opening access to scientific equipment, to the computational capacity for scientific teams and students, as well as for smaller tech companies from all over the country. Let me emphasize that they should become full-fledged participants of the National Bioeconomy National Project. And this is the most important thing. I believe you will all agree the main component is the specialists, the people like you, the experts who will be building this bioeconomy. We must admit that so far the knowledge and the skills of many alumni of universities and institutions are lacking behind the current level of the development of biotechnology. Sure, this is a new advanced area, therefore there is still much to be done. The professional training challenge is one of the hardest systemic ones, and we should find a solution to this challenge. Here is the first thing we should do. We need to ensure professional training for universities and professional training who would be professional in their interdisciplinary area of biology, chemistry, engineering, artificial intelligence. Together with the businesses, we should update the professional educational programs, expanding the practical studies for the students at the industrial platforms. We need to take into account the latest advancements in microbiology, genetics, bioinformatics, which is why I suggest creating advanced engineering schools in our universities and expand the Professionality National Project to embrace these areas. Second point, I tasked the government, together with the regions and businesses, to review their forecast for the demand for professionals in biotech. We need to take into account the high demand for new, skilled people and professionals, and, if needed, increase the number of scholarships for the studies of students in the regions of the Russian Federation. Third point, we need to work with the school pupils, keeping in mind the needs of the biotech. We need to expand the school studies for science and technology and life sciences. We need to launch a program to popularize bioeconomy in schools. with the involvement of the leading mass media and internet platform. The earlier the people learn about this area, the better. This is a very complex, complicated area of research. I would like to use this opportunity to thank the Russian biotech companies, scientists, philanthropists, enthusiasts for their educational activities. We need to keep working in this area, opening new horizons and professional pathways for the youth, for the new generations, for all the citizens. This, so to speak, propaganda is very important in a positive sense, but it should be timely. Dear friends, at this forum we always talk about new areas and developments that define the future of humanity. Achievements in biology, genetics, other life sciences are called technologies of the 21st century, and this name is justified. With the IT industry and artificial intelligence, they are transforming economy and science and society, creating opportunities for millions of people. I suggest that the next forum should focus on the creation and implementation of digital platforms in our lives. Even now, they serve to implement scientific projects. They bring together a master, an entrepreneur from a small town with its clients from the cities. They let the people to control and manage their housing estates, villages, and entire regions. These systems analyze medical research in the shortest term, helping the doctors save people's lives. And these are only a few areas of the platform economy. And Moscow has good progress in this area. We recently discussed this. For example, a person calls an ambulance, and while it moves to the patient, the doctor's screen has the entire medical files. The doctor already knows what the ambulance has to take and what has to be done in order to save a life. And this is only one example of these new advanced platform solutions. In this area, Russia creates world-class solutions. We are ready to share our experience in the interests of the entire humanity. I gladly invite all of you to join work and to take part in the 2027 Future Technologies Forum. Thank you for your attention. All the best to you. And I believe I will see some of the colleagues now to continue our discussion. Thank you.